I came home early and found my wife in our bathtub with my younger brother. So I locked the door from the outside and called his fiancée. "Get to my house, now," I told Sophia, "and bring the black folder." 15 minutes later, she arrived. She didn't come alone. "My name is Nathan Cole. I'm 38 years old, and I never imagined I'd be standing in my own hallway, listening to the muffled sound of laughter and water jets while my marriage and my bloodline rotted behind a locked oak door." The house was quiet except for the hum of the jacuzzi upstairs. My house. My water. My last name. I didn't kick the door in. I didn't shout. I slid the brass key into the exterior deadbolt, something Vanessa used to tease me for installing. Click, click. They didn't even hear it. I didn't lose control. I took it. I've always been the responsible one. At 38, I built Cole Urban Development from a two-man drafting firm into a multi-million-dollar architectural powerhouse. I design luxury residential projects across the Midwest. I negotiate contracts. I read fine print. I anticipate failure before it happens. That's how you survive in my industry. Ryan, my younger brother, is the opposite. He's 31, charismatic, effortlessly likable. The golden child. The one my mother calls misunderstood every time he quits another job or burns another opportunity. Growing up, I was the investment. He was the indulgence. And Vanessa, my wife of 5 years, fit perfectly into that dynamic. Polished, social, magnetic in a room, she loved the lifestyle, the galas, the press photos, the corner office with my name on it. What she didn't love was the structure, the discipline, the long nights. She used to joke that I treated marriage like a merger. Maybe I did. But I never treated it like a hobby. Ryan floated through life on charm and family forgiveness. I carried the weight. I paid the bills. I funded his fresh starts. I covered his debts. And today, that imbalance was about to correct itself permanently. It was 2:17 p.m. on a Wednesday. I was supposed to be on a flight to New York for a development pitch. Mechanical failure grounded the plane. Everyone groaned. I didn't. I figured I'd take the unexpected time and surprise Vanessa. We hadn't had a quiet afternoon together in months. I didn't text her. I wanted to walk in, loosen my tie, pour a drink, maybe sit on the patio like normal people. When I stepped through the front door, the house felt off. Not messy. Not loud. Heavy. The kind of silence that has a pulse. I set my overnight bag down near the staircase. The marble floors were cool under my shoes. No music. No television. No movement. Then, I heard it, a faint, rhythmic slosh of water, and the low mechanical hum of the master bath jacuzzi. I frowned. Vanessa told me she had a Pilates class at 3 and a brand consult call at 4. Ryan had texted the family group chat that morning about meeting a potential investor. I loosened my tie slowly. The floating staircase barely made a sound under my weight as I climbed. The water noise grew clearer. Not just jets, laughter, high, breathless, familiar. Ryan's laugh has always been sharp at the end, like he's trying to sell the punchline. I've known that sound since we were kids sharing a bedroom. My stomach tightened. Not fear, recognition. The bedroom door was open. Steam drifted lazily into the hallway. The air smelled like eucalyptus bath salts Vanessa bought from some overpriced boutique downtown. Then, I saw the trail, my wife's silk blouse on the hardwood floor. Ryan's leather belt coiled beside the armchair. Her heels kicked under the bed, his watch on my nightstand. The bathroom door was cracked an inch. Just enough for steam to escape. Just enough for me to see shapes through the haze. I stepped closer. Quiet. Controlled. Through the narrow gap, I saw them. Vanessa was sitting across from him in the oversized tub. My tub. Knees brushing. 2 champagne flutes balanced on the ledge, the bottle I'd been saving for our anniversary already half empty. Ryan leaned toward her, his fingers tracing the inside of her wrist like it was muscle memory. She laughed. Comfortable. Intimate. Practiced. Not a mistake, not a moment of weakness, a routine. Something inside my chest went completely still. I could have kicked the door open. I could have dragged him out by his collar. Instead, something colder took over. I pulled the heavy oak door shut without a sound, and I reached for my keys. The first instinct wasn't rage, it was assessment. My pulse was steady, my breathing even. Years of negotiating hostile contracts taught me one thing: whoever reacts first loses. I slid the brass skeleton key from my ring. Vanessa used to call it my control complex. Said no normal man needed a master key to every interior door in his own house. Today, it made perfect sense. I inserted the key into the exterior deadbolt of the master bathroom. Slowly. Click. I turned it again. Click. Solid. They were locked inside my bathroom. Naked. Oblivious. trapped in steam and their own stupidity. I leaned my palm against the wood and listened. The jets masked everything. They hadn't noticed. I didn't shout, I didn't pound on the door. I stepped back and pulled out my phone. I wasn't calling the police, not yet. I opened Sophia's contact, Ryan's fiancée, the only other person in this family who understood what betrayal actually costs. She answered on the second ring. "You need to get to my house right now," I said calmly. A pause. "What happened?" "I have something that belongs to you," I replied. "Bring the black folder." Then I hung up. The war had officially started. Before this escalates, I need to ask you something. If you've ever had to stand up to family who thought you'd always clean up their mess, hit the like button. Subscribe if you believe loyalty isn't optional. And tell me in the comments, would you have opened that door? Or done what I did? Because it only gets worse from here. I leaned against the hallway wall. Phone still in my hand. Listening to the water churn behind the locked door. 3 seconds passed, then the handle rattled, at first, lightly, then violently. Metal grinding against brass. "What the hell?" Ryan's voice echoed through the wood. A wet slap of bare feet hit tile. Vanessa's voice followed, sharp and confused. "Why isn't it opening?" The handle shook harder, then pounding. "Nathan," Ryan shouted. "Open the damn door!" I didn't answer. I crossed my arms and let him hear my footsteps as I moved deliberately across the hardwood, slow, measured, letting him know I was there. The pounding turned frantic. "This isn't funny," Vanessa yelled. "Unlock it right now, funny." That word almost made me smile. I checked my watch. Sophia would be here in 12 minutes. Ryan shifted tactics quickly. The pounding stopped. His voice dropped an octave, the tone he used when asking our parents for money. "Hey, man. Come on. Whatever you think is happening. It's not like that. Not like that." I stepped closer to the door. "Then explain it," I said evenly. Silence. Then Vanessa tried. "We were just talking." Ryan stopped by to check on me. I felt dizzy. He helped me into the tub. I looked at the champagne bottle on the nightstand, the 2 glasses, the discarded clothes. "You felt dizzy?" I repeated. "So you both got naked?" No answer. The steam continued to hiss behind the door. "You've got about 10 minutes, I said calmly. "Use them to come up with something better." Ryan slammed his fist against the wood again. "You're overreacting." "No." I was calibrating. And downstairs, headlights flashed across the front windows. Sophia had arrived. Footsteps climbed the staircase behind me. Calm, measured, not rushed. Sophia didn't speak when she reached the landing. She didn't need to. I handed her the key without breaking eye contact with the door. 2 uniformed officers stood a few steps back. Ryan heard the extra movement. His voice changed instantly. "Nathan, who's out there?" I turned the key. Click. Click. I stepped aside and pulled the door open. The steam rolled out, first thick, humid, carrying the scent of lavender and deceit. Then them. Vanessa and Ryan stood in the center of the bathroom wrapped in white towels, skin flushed from heat and panic. My champagne bottle sat between them on the marble ledge like evidence on display. Ryan's eyes locked onto Sophia, his fiancée. She didn't flinch. Vanessa looked at me first, not ashamed, not sorry, annoyed. "This is insane," she snapped. "You locked us in here like animals." One of the officers stepped forward. Camera already in hand. Flash, flash. Ryan raised his arm. "You can't do that." "Yes. We can," Sophia said calmly. "Private residence, owner consent." Vanessa's composure cracked. She pointed at me. "You're sick, Nathan. You've always been sick. You treat everything like a transaction. You don't love anyone, you manage them." Ryan seized the opening. "That's the truth," he added quickly. "You were never around. She was lonely. I was there, that's it." I looked at him. "My little brother. The one whose college tuition I paid when he flunked out the first time. You were there," I repeated quietly. Vanessa crossed her arms tighter around the towel. "You've been emotionally absent for years," she continued, her voice rising. "Everything is business with you. Schedules, agreements, control. Do you even know how to relax? How to actually be with someone?" I didn't answer. She stepped closer. Anger replacing fear. "Ryan listens. He makes me feel wanted. You make me feel audited." Ryan smirked slightly, thinking he'd scored something. "You pushed her away?" he said. "You can't blame us for filling the gap." Filling the gap. That was the narrative. Not betrayal, not deceit, not sneaking into my house while I was pitching investors in Manhattan. Just 2 victims responding to my coldness. I let the silence stretch until it made them uncomfortable. Then I spoke. "You coordinated alibis," I said evenly. "You texted the family chat about fake meetings. You opened a bottle I've been saving for our anniversary. You didn't slip. You scheduled this, Ryan's jaw tightened. Vanessa looked away. Sophia stepped forward and dropped the black folder onto the vanity. Inside were printed bank statements, hotel receipts, GPS logs from Ryan's car, dates, times, patterns. We know about the motel off Route 41, Sophia said flatly. And the yoga classes. Ryan's face drained of color. Vanessa stared at him. You tracked me, she whispered. He didn't answer. The officers took more photos. Flash, flash. Ryan tried one last pivot. You're really going to ruin your marriage over this, he barked at me. You're going to humiliate your own brother. I looked at him without blinking. You ruined it, I said. I'm just documenting it. And that's when I decided to make sure the whole house heard exactly who they were. I walked out of the bathroom and straight to the smart control panel mounted near the staircase. Ryan was still arguing behind me. Vanessa was demanding the officers leave. Sophia was silent. I tapped the screen. Input source master bathroom intercom. Output zone whole house, volume maximum. A soft click. Then Ryan's voice exploded through every speaker in the house. You never satisfied her anyway, he shouted. The sound echoing through the foyer, the kitchen, the vaulted ceilings. Vanessa gasped. Ryan. Stop too late. Her voice followed. Amplified and unavoidable. You're obsessed with control, Nathan. You treat me like an employee. Their words boomed through marble and steel. Through the hallway leading to the front door. Through the kitchen where the cleaning staff would arrive in minutes. There was no muffling it now. No rewriting the story later. They were indicting themselves in surround sound. I stood at the base of the staircase, arms folded, listening to their defense turn into confession. Ryan realized what I'd done. You sick bastard, he yelled from upstairs. Turn that off. I didn't move. Vanessa's voice cracked through the speakers again. I was lonely. You were never home. The lie sounded smaller when it echoed. Pathetic. They weren't star-crossed lovers. They were two opportunists caught in acoustics. After another 30 seconds of raw, unfiltered exposure, I reached up and muted the system. Silence returned to the house. But the damage didn't. I looked up at the landing where they stood. Dripping and shaken. Now, I said calmly. We're going to discuss ownership. Vanessa clutched her towel tighter. Ryan stood half-dressed, still trying to look defiant. The officers waited. Sophia stepped beside me, and then my attorney walked in. Margaret Pierce had represented my family for 27 years. Steel gray hair, impeccable posture, zero tolerance for nonsense. She carried a leather portfolio thick enough to crush delusions on impact. Nathan, she said calmly, we have everything prepared. Ryan scoffed. Prepared for what? A tantrum? Margaret ignored him and addressed the officers. Property deed and trust declaration, she said, handing over certified copies. The residence at 14 Lakeshore Drive is owned exclusively by the Cole Family Trust. Sole beneficiary Nathan Cole. Ryan blinked. Vanessa frowned. What trust? I met her eyes. The one you never asked about. Ryan laughed nervously. Okay, great. It's in your name. So what? We live here. That makes it marital property. Margaret turned a page in the document. No, she corrected evenly. The property was transferred into the trust 9 years ago. 2 years before Mr. Cole married Miss Hastings. It is not a marital asset. It is a protected family holding. Neither of you are listed as trustees. Neither of you have equity. Vanessa's face shifted from irritation to confusion. What does that mean? She asked. It means, I replied calmly. You were guests. Ryan's jaw tightened. You're kicking us out, Margaret answered for me. Permission to occupy the property has been revoked. Continued presence constitutes trespassing. One of the officers looked directly at me. Sir, do you want them removed? Yes, I said. No hesitation. Vanessa's composure cracked first. You can't do this, she snapped. I'm your wife. You were, I corrected. Ryan tried to step forward. This is my family's house too. Margaret didn't even look up. You are not listed in the trust, Mr. Cole. Legally speaking, you have the same claim to this property as a delivery driver. Silence hit like a dropped weight. Vanessa looked at me with something close to panic. You never told me the house was in a trust. I shrugged slightly. You never asked. You were too busy enjoying it. Ryan tried a different angle. Fine. Even if the house is yours. Everything in it isn't. My suits, my laptop, my watch. Margaret turned another page. Assets purchased with marital funds are frozen pending division. Additionally, under the infidelity clause in the prenuptial agreement, Vanessa's head snapped toward me. What prenup? I held her gaze. The one you signed, without reading. Margaret continued smoothly. Clause 12b, adultery, voids entitlement to spousal support, and authorizes immediate asset protection measures. Ryan stared at Vanessa. You signed a prenup, she said nothing. The officer stepped forward. You have 5 minutes to dress and collect personal hygiene items only. Anything exceeding $500 in value remains until court adjudication. Ryan's face flushed red. You're serious? I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You walked into my house, you opened my champagne, you slept with my wife. You really thought I hadn't protected myself? Vanessa looked small now. Not glamorous, not magnetic, just exposed. Ryan muttered something under his breath. Margaret closed her folder. 5 minutes, she repeated. And for the first time since I walked through the front door that afternoon. They understood something critical. They hadn't trapped me. They'd walked straight into my structure. They dressed in silence. No more speeches. No more psychology lectures about my emotional availability. Just the sound of drawers opening, closets sliding, fabric rustling. 5 minutes feels different when you're packing the collapse of your life into it. Ryan came out first, wearing yesterday's jeans and a wrinkled button-down. His hair was still damp. He looked younger suddenly. Smaller. Vanessa followed. Mascara smudged at the corners of her eyes. Not crying. Just stunned. She held a small leather toiletry case like it might anchor her to something stable. 2 officers stood near the staircase. Sophia waited by the foyer. Arms folded. She hadn't said a word since the prenup revelation. She didn't need to. Ryan tried one last attempt at swagger as he descended the stairs. This is insane, he muttered. You're blowing up your own family over one mistake. I didn't answer immediately. When he reached the bottom step, I stepped forward and adjusted his collar the way I used to before job interviews. It wasn't one mistake, I said quietly. It was a pattern. And you mistook my silence for weakness. Vanessa avoided my eyes as she passed me. You're going to regret this, she whispered. No, I replied calmly. I'm going to recover from it. The front door opened. Cold Chicago air rushed inside. And then the neighbors started looking. Lakeshore Drive is quiet. But not blind. Curtains shifted. A dog walker slowed. A Tesla idled across the street. Nothing spreads faster in an affluent neighborhood than scandal. Ryan noticed. His posture stiffened. Don't do this out here, he hissed. You did this out here, I said. The officers escorted them down the stone steps. Not aggressively. Just firmly. Officially. Vanessa paused at the bottom, turning back toward the house. This is my home, she said, voice cracking for the first time. I stood in the doorway. No, I corrected. It was access. Ryan's jaw clenched. You think you've won, he asked. I held his stare. I don't think about winning, I said evenly. I think about ownership. The officers guided them toward the curb. Ryan's car keys were already sealed in an evidence bag pending asset review. His leased Audi sat useless in the driveway. Vanessa's Range Rover titled under the company fleet. Neither of them had transportation. Sophia stepped forward then. I'll call you an Uber, she said flatly to Ryan. He looked at her like he'd just realized gravity existed. You knew, he asked. She didn't blink. I suspected. She replied. I just needed confirmation. The Uber arrived in 4 minutes. They stood there, 2 adults who had gambled comfort for thrill and waited under the watch of uniformed officers and curious neighbors. When the car pulled up, Ryan hesitated before getting in. For a split second, I saw something real in his expression. Not anger, not arrogance, fear. The door shut, the car drove off. And just like that, the house was quiet again. But the war wasn't over. Because when golden children fall, they don't fall alone. My phone started ringing before the Uber turned the corner. Mom. Of course. I let it ring twice before answering. What did you do? She demanded. No greeting. No hesitation. Good afternoon to you too, I replied evenly. Ryan just called me from the street like a criminal. In front of neighbors, Nathan, have you completely lost your mind? I stepped back inside and closed the front door. I removed 2 people from my property, I said calmly. Legally. You humiliated your brother, she snapped. He humiliated himself, I corrected. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. The sound she makes when she's about to rewrite reality. Ryan made a mistake, she said. He's young, he's impulsive. That doesn't mean you destroy his life. He's 31, I replied. Not 15. Dad's voice filtered faintly in the background. Put me on. A shuffle. Nate. My father began carefully, using the nickname he only pulls out when he wants compliance. Your mother and I understand you're upset, but this could have been handled privately. It was handled privately, I said. In my bathroom. Silence. Mom came back on the line. You're the older brother, she insisted. You're supposed to lead, to forgive, to keep the family intact. I laughed once, not loudly. Just enough. I've been keeping this family intact my entire adult life, I said. I paid Ryan's tuition when he flunked out. I covered his credit cards. I bailed him out after that bar fight sophomore year. I funded his startups. I've led plenty. That's what family does, she shot back. No, I replied calmly. That's what an ATM does. Dad tried a softer approach. Son. Vanessa said you were distant, working all the time. Maybe she felt neglected. I stared at the staircase where they'd just stood wrapped in towels. She slept with my brother, I said flatly. Another silence. Then Mom again. You must have pushed her away. Women don't just stop, I cut in. My voice didn't rise. But it hardened. You don't get to analyze my marriage to excuse his betrayal. She shifted tactics instantly. Where is Ryan supposed to go? She demanded. That's not my responsibility anymore. He's your brother. And he knew that when he walked into my house. Mom's voice dropped into that wounded tone she uses when she wants guilt to do the heavy lifting. I never thought you'd turn on your own blood like this. I looked around the foyer, the marble floors, the framed family photos I'd paid to have restored, the home I maintained while they praised him for breathing. I didn't turn on anyone, I said. I stopped protecting them. Dad cleared his throat. Your mother and I are coming over. No, I said immediately. A beat. You're not welcome here today. Mom gasped like I'd slapped her. You can't bar us from our son's house. It's not Ryan's house, I replied. And if you show up to pressure me, you'll be asked to leave too. The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting match. You've changed, she said finally. No, I answered. I've stopped compensating. I ended the call. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the stabilizer. I felt like the fault line. And the earthquake was just getting started. They showed up anyway. Of course they did. 40 minutes later, my parents' silver Lexus pulled into the driveway like they were arriving for Sunday dinner instead of a reckoning. I watched from the security monitor as my mother stepped out, first chin lifted, expression set in moral outrage. My father followed, already looking tired. I didn't open the door immediately. I let them ring once, twice. On the third press, I unlocked it remotely and stepped into the foyer without inviting them in. Mom pushed past the threshold before I could speak. Where is he? She demanded. Not here, I said calmly. And neither are they. Dad tried to keep the temperature down. Nathan, let's just sit and talk. We're talking, I replied. Right here. Mom's eyes scanned the house like she expected to see damage. You threw your brother out like trash. I removed him from property he had no legal claim to. She scoffed. Legal. Always legal with you. Do you hear yourself? This is family. I held her gaze. Family doesn't sleep with your wife. Dad flinched slightly at that. Mom pressed on. Ryan said Vanessa was miserable. That you treated her like an assistant. That you were cold. And that justifies it, I asked. She felt alone, so she climbed into my bathtub with my brother. My voice didn't rise. But something in it changed. Mom shifted tactics again, tears this time. I raised you better than this, she said, hand on her chest. To discard people when they mess up. I didn't discard anyone, I said evenly. I enforced a boundary. She shook her head. You're overreacting. You always go nuclear. I stepped closer, not threatening. Just certain. No. For years, I absorbed everything. Ryan's debts, his failures, his apologies. I paid for his mistakes so you wouldn't have to feel disappointed. Dad looked down. Mom's jaw tightened. I'm done being the bank of Nathan, I said. Closed. Permanently. The words hung there. You wouldn't cut off your own parents, she challenged. I pulled my phone out, in front of her. I opened my contacts. I blocked Ryan, then Vanessa. Then, after a brief pause, I blocked my mother. Her eyes widened. You're being dramatic, I looked at my father. If you want a relationship with me, I said calmly, it will be separate from enabling him. Dad swallowed. He didn't argue. Mom stepped back like I'd physically pushed her. This is unbelievable. No, I replied. This is overdue. I walked to the front door and opened it. You need to leave. For a moment, I thought she'd refuse. Then pride won over persistence. She walked out first. Dad lingered half a second, meeting my eyes. I'm disappointed, he said quietly. I've been disappointed for years, I answered. The door closed, and for the first time in my life, the house felt lighter. Not empty. Defined. Boundaries aren't loud. They're final. I thought the personal side was the worst of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, I walked into my office and felt it immediately. Conversations stopped when I passed. Eyes shifted. Assistants who usually greeted me with confidence suddenly looked cautious. My COO, Daniel, met me halfway down the hallway. We need to talk, he said quietly. I nodded once and kept walking toward the boardroom. Inside, 3 board members were already seated. Laptops open. Faces tight. That's when I saw it. An email thread projected onto the screen. Subject line: Leadership concerns, immediate review required. Sender Ryan Cole. I didn't react outwardly, but something in my chest hardened. Ryan had never held an executive position in my company. I'd given him a Director of Strategic Partnerships title to appease my parents and keep him employed. It was ceremonial, controlled, limited access. Apparently, that hadn't stopped him. Daniel cleared his throat. He sent this to the board 2 nights ago, he said. Claims you've been emotionally unstable, that the situation at home is affecting your decision-making. He's requesting an emergency vote to suspend you pending investigation. I let that sit. The audacity was almost impressive. I looked at the screen. Ryan had written, Nathan has demonstrated erratic behavior, including public outbursts and personal vendettas that may expose the company to liability. As a concerned executive and family member, I believe immediate intervention is necessary. Concerned executive, family member. Vanessa's influence was visible in the phrasing. Polished, manipulative. Another slide appeared. There it was. An internal transfer request Ryan had filed 2 weeks earlier. He'd attempted to shift partial signatory authority over one of our subsidiary accounts to himself, citing operational efficiency. Denied automatically by the system. He'd been probing, testing, preparing. I leaned back in the chair at the head of the table. Who else has seen this? I asked calmly. All senior management, Daniel admitted. Good, I replied. The board chairman, Harold Simmons, folded his hands. Nathan, we need clarity, he said. There are rumors circulating about a domestic incident. Police involvement, public scene. I met his eyes directly. Yes, I said. There was an incident. It involved trespassing on private property. It has no operational impact on this company. Harold didn't look convinced. Ryan claims otherwise. I almost smiled. Ryan doesn't understand operational impact, I said evenly. He understands access. I stood and walked to the control console. With your permission, I said to the board, I'd like to present documentation. Harold nodded cautiously. I connected my drive. Slide 1, Corporate Structure. Cole Urban Development LLC. Slide 2, Intellectual Property Ownership. Every architectural blueprint, software modeling system, and proprietary development algorithm registered under a separate holding entity. Cole Design Holdings. Owned solely by me, not the company. Me. The room shifted. Harold frowned. I was under the impression those assets were internal, he said. They are licensed. I corrected calmly. To the company. Revocable. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. Slide 3, Licensing Agreement. Clause 8. In the event of executive misconduct or hostile takeover attempts, licensor retains immediate right to suspend usage. I let the words settle. Ryan had tried to weaponize the board. He had forgotten one thing. He never built the foundation. He only stood on it. Harold leaned back slowly. You're telling us, he said carefully, that if this board were to vote you out, the company would lose rights to every core design, active project file, and software tool currently generating revenue. I finished. Silence. Not dramatic. Heavy. Deliberate. Daniel finally spoke. Ryan doesn't know about this structure. No, I said, he doesn't. Harold closed his laptop. Then this meeting is premature. I nodded once. I agree. But I wasn't finished. However, I added calmly, I would like the record to reflect that a junior executive attempted to undermine leadership while pursuing unauthorized financial control. Harold's gaze sharpened. That will be noted. Outside the glass walls of the boardroom, I could see Ryan standing near reception, watching, waiting. He thought he'd started a corporate coup. What he'd actually done was trigger a compliance review. And when that review finished, there would be consequences. This wasn't just about a marriage anymore. It was about control. And I was done letting anyone borrow mine. I asked Daniel to have Ryan join us. If he wanted a stage, I'd give him one. The board remained seated as he walked in navy suit, jaw tight, trying to project authority he hadn't earned. He glanced at me once, then at Harold. I assume this is about the email, he said. It is, Harold replied evenly. Take a seat. Ryan sat across from me at the long walnut table. For a brief second, it felt like we were kids again, him across from me at the dinner table, waiting to see if I'd cover for him. Not today. Harold folded his hands. You've requested a leadership review, he began, citing instability and liability risk. Before we proceed, Mr. Cole has presented structural information regarding intellectual property ownership. Were you aware of the licensing arrangement with Cole Design Holdings? Ryan hesitated. That's internal structuring, he said dismissively. It doesn't change the fact that Nathan's behavior. Answer the question, Harold cut in. Ryan's jaw flexed. No. I watched him process that in real time. He hadn't known. He'd assumed my name on the building meant shared ownership. He'd assumed access meant entitlement. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed copies of his attempted signatory transfer request, time-stamped, logged. 2 weeks ago, I said calmly. You initiated an internal request to shift partial financial authority over our subsidiary development account to yourself. Ryan's eyes flicked to the papers. That's standard operational delegation, he said quickly. Without board approval, Daniel asked. Ryan pivoted. I was anticipating expansion. Preparing. For what Harold asked. Silence. Then, I placed another document on the table. Hotel receipts, mileage logs, expense reimbursements tied to corporate fuel cards used on dates I was out of state. Ryan's face drained of color. You billed personal travel to the company, I said evenly. Under client acquisition. That's ridiculous, he snapped. Those were legitimate meetings. With my wife, I asked. The room went still. Harold's gaze sharpened. Is there a conflict of interest we're unaware of? He asked carefully. Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear. This is a personal matter, he muttered. It became a corporate matter when you used company resources to facilitate it. I replied. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Slide by slide, I projected the audit summary Daniel's compliance team had prepared overnight. Unauthorized access attempts, policy violations, expense discrepancies, email evidence showing Ryan forwarding internal projections to his personal account. I don't see evidence of instability, Harold said slowly. Looking at me, I see evidence of misconduct. Ryan shot up from his chair. This is retaliation, he barked. You're twisting this because I called you out. I stood as well, not aggressively. Just to meet him eye level. You tried to orchestrate a board suspension, I said quietly. While siphoning access and misusing funds, you don't get to frame that as concern. Harold raised a hand. Sit down, Mr. Cole, he said to Ryan. Ryan didn't move. I leaned slightly forward. If this board were to entertain your motion, I said evenly, I would revoke the licensing agreement immediately. I tapped the document. No designs, no active project rights, no modeling software. Our developments would freeze within 48 hours. Investors would pull out within 72. Harold didn't blink. Is that accurate? He asked Daniel. Daniel nodded once. Yes. Ryan finally understood. This wasn't a power struggle between brothers. It was a structural imbalance he had never seen. You wouldn't destroy your own company, he said. I looked at him calmly. It's not my company, I corrected. It's my intellectual property licensed to a company. That distinction landed hard. Harold closed his folder. This board will not be proceeding with a leadership suspension, he said firmly. Instead, we will be initiating a formal review into Mr. Ryan Cole's conduct. Ryan stared at him. You can't be serious. Harold's tone sharpened. I am. He turned to me. Nathan, as majority voting member and licensor, do you have a recommendation? I didn't hesitate. Terminate his executive role effective immediately, I said. Revoke system access. Initiate forensic audit. Pursue restitution if required. Ryan looked at me like I'd just crossed an unforgivable line. You're going to fire your own brother? No, I replied calmly. I'm protecting my company. Security entered within minutes. Not dramatic, not forceful, professional. Ryan's company badge was removed, his access credentials disabled in real time. I watched the moment it registered. His phone buzzed. Account access revoked. Email disabled. Shared drive permissions removed. Status evaporated in under 60 seconds. This isn't over, he said quietly. Almost to himself. It is, I replied. As security escorted him out, employees watched through glass partitions. Whispers moved like electricity. Not scandal, correction. When the door shut behind him, the boardroom felt different. Cleaner. Harold exhaled. I wasn't aware of the depth of your asset separation, he admitted. I prefer clarity over assumptions, I said. He nodded slowly. Your position as CEO stands. Daniel gave me a subtle look, half respect, half relief. The meeting adjourned. I remained seated for a moment after everyone left. Not triumphant, not angry. Just aware. Ryan thought proximity to power made him powerful. He confused access with ownership. And that mistake cost him everything in under an hour. But the real collapse hadn't happened yet. Because neither he nor Vanessa had realized something critical. There was no personal fortune waiting for them outside these walls, no safety net, no hidden reserve account. And when they found out, the war would finally end. 2 weeks after Ryan was escorted out, Vanessa requested a formal settlement meeting. Not reconciliation. Not apology. Settlement. Her attorney sent a letter outlining reasonable expectations, temporary spousal support, asset division, continued access to lifestyle accommodations commensurate with established standards. I almost admired the phrasing. Almost. We met in a downtown conference room overlooking the river. Glass walls, neutral carpet, expensive silence. Vanessa looked composed again. Designer blazer, hair perfect. As if presentation alone could reverse structural reality. Her attorney cleared his throat. My client believes a discreet financial resolution would benefit both parties. I folded my hands on the table. What number are we talking about? I asked calmly. He slid a document across. 7 figures. Plus, ongoing monthly support. Vanessa didn't look at me. She looked at the skyline. I opened my own folder. Before we discuss distribution, I said evenly. There's a clarification. I handed over a summary statement from Cole Design Holdings. Every dividend payment I had received over the past 6 years, every profit distribution, every executive bonus, line by line, final column allocation. 100% donated, charitable foundations, urban housing initiatives, veteran transition programs, architectural education grants. Vanessa frowned. What is this? She asked. It's where the money went, I replied. Her attorney scanned the pages. Confused. Where are your personal reserves? He asked. I don't maintain personal liquidity beyond operating thresholds, I said calmly. My compensation cycles directly into philanthropic trusts. Vanessa finally looked at me. You're lying. I slid the IRS acknowledgement letters across the table. Stamped, filed, verified. You gave it away, she asked, voice thin. I reinvested it into things that generate impact, I corrected. Her attorney flipped through the prenuptial agreement again. Clause 12b. Infidelity voids entitlement to spousal support. Protected assets remain separate. Charitable allocations irreversible. There was nothing left to divide except furniture and wounded pride. Vanessa leaned back slowly. So, there's nothing, she asked. Not nothing, I said evenly. Just not what you assumed. Her attorney's tone changed completely. Given these circumstances, he said carefully, our position may need adjustment. Vanessa stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. You built all of that, she whispered. And you don't even keep it. I met her gaze. I keep control, I said. The meeting ended in under 40 minutes. No dramatic outburst, no screaming. Just realization. Ryan had lost his job. Vanessa had lost the lifestyle. And neither of them had a financial cushion to land on, because the fortune they thought they were circling never existed in the way they imagined. And the absence of that safety net would hit harder than any legal clause ever could. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It unraveled. Quietly at first. Ryan tried damage control. LinkedIn posts about new beginnings. Cryptic captions about betrayal breeding strength. He framed himself as the visionary forced out by corporate politics. Investors didn't buy it. Neither did recruiters. The forensic audit concluded within 3 weeks. Unauthorized expenses totaling just under $1.8 million once penalties and breach of duty clauses were applied. Corporate misuse, contractual violations, legal fees, with interest and restitution. The number crossed $2 million. $2 million. For someone who had never kept more than $5,000 in a checking account. His attorney called mine. They wanted negotiation. I declined. This wasn't vengeance, it was enforcement. Vanessa stayed with him for a while after the settlement meeting. I heard through mutual contacts that they rented a short-term condo downtown. Smaller. Anonymous. No lake view. No staff. No marble floors. Reality shrinks fast when status evaporates. But pressure does something to people. It clarifies motives. Ryan's car was repossessed first. Then the condo lease ended abruptly. The lawsuits didn't disappear. Debt collectors don't respond to charm. Vanessa lasted 3 more months. 3, that's how long loyalty survives when there's no lifestyle attached to it. The argument that ended it wasn't private. A neighbor recorded it. Sent it to someone. It made its way to me without effort. Ryan shouting in the parking garage of a mid-rise building. Vanessa yelling back. You said he'd pay, she screamed. He will. Ryan shot back. He doesn't owe you anything. Silence. Then something shattering. Glass. The video ended there. A week later. Vanessa filed a civil complaint against Ryan for misrepresentation and financial coercion. The irony was almost architectural in its symmetry. The two people who accused me of being cold were now suing each other over money that never belonged to them. Ryan called me once. Blocked number, I answered. He didn't start with anger this time. He started with breathing. Heavy. Uneven. I'm in trouble, he said. Yes, I replied. I need help. There it was, the reflex. The expectation that I would step in, clean it up, restore balance. You owe over $2 million, I said evenly. You falsified expense reports. You attempted a hostile takeover. You slept with my wife. Silence. I'm your brother, he whispered. I let that hang. Then, I said the simplest truth I've ever spoken. You were. I ended the call. Within 6 months, he declared personal bankruptcy. Vanessa moved out of state. The golden child didn't fall because I pushed him. He fell because he'd never learned to stand, and for the first time in my life, I didn't reach out to catch him. 6 months after the boardroom meeting, I restructured everything. Not out of fear, out of clarity. Coal Urban Development remained operational, but I stepped back from day-to-day visibility. Daniel took on expanded executive oversight. The board stabilized, investors regained confidence, and I built something new. Phoenix Atelier. Smaller, private, precision-focused, no ceremonial titles, no family hires, no emotional liabilities embedded in payroll. Just architects, engineers, and operators who understood one rule: access is earned. Ownership is protected. The name wasn't subtle. I didn't need it to be. Rebirth doesn't happen in fire and screaming. It happens in silence, in paperwork, in boundaries that no one sees but everyone feels. I moved out of Lakeshore Drive. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. The house had done its job. It reminded me of structure, of leverage, of protection. But I didn't need the monument anymore. Ryan faded from headlines quickly. Bankruptcy filings aren't glamorous. He took a mid-level job in another state. No executive title, no boardrooms, no leverage. Vanessa disappeared from the social circuit entirely. I heard she rebranded herself online as a resilience coach. I didn't check, I didn't care. My mornings are quieter now. No family group chat, no crisis calls, no cleaning up someone else's consequences. I run, I read, I build. I meet people who don't mistake stability for coldness. And when I look back at that afternoon, the steam, the locked door, the echo of their voices through the house, I don't feel rage anymore. I feel recognition. They didn't destroy my life. They revealed who was standing on it. And once I cleared the weight off the structure, it stood stronger than ever. Here's what I learned. Power isn't proximity, it's ownership. Ryan thought sitting at my table made him equal. Vanessa thought wearing my last name made her secure. My parents thought blood guaranteed loyalty. They all confused access with entitlement. Access can be revoked. Ownership cannot. I also learned something harder. Ignorance isn't innocence, it's liability. Ryan never bothered to understand how the company was structured. Vanessa never read the prenup. My parents never questioned the imbalance they were feeding for decades. They assumed the system would keep carrying them. Systems don't carry people. They expose them. And boundaries, they aren't cruelty, they're freedom. The moment I stopped funding dysfunction, my life didn't shrink, it stabilized. If you take anything from this, let it be this: don't confuse generosity with obligation. Don't confuse family with immunity. And never build something valuable without protecting it, because the people closest to you will test the locks first. If this story resonated with you, like and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. Would you have handled it differently? Disclaimer. This story was created by the Fish Tells Stories team for entertainment purposes only. Do not attempt to replicate or apply these actions in real life under any circumstances.